Hello again, my math friends. This is Mrs. Schlecht, and in this video, we're going to talk about the properties of equality. All right, my friends, so you know there's a few materials that you need in order to be successful for this activity. First, you're going to need your Envision book. We're still in volume 1, and that's still with your robot friend. Number 2, you're going to need your math notebook to take those beautiful math notes. Number 3, you're going to need your pencil. And fourth, last but certainly never least, that positive math attitude. All right, my friends, so this video goes very well with lesson 4-2 in your Envision book. And that lesson really talks about these properties of equality. And I hope you know that equality talks about things being equal or things being the same. Now, the key concepts page for this lesson is on page 194. So before I move on, let's kind of take a trip back in time to lesson 4-1. And lesson 4-1 really stressed this equal sign and what it actually means, right? We learned that this is called an equation because it's equal, right? An equation shows us that this quantity, this amount, is the same as this quantity or this amount. That's what that equal sign means. Now, one thing that we're going to kind of expand upon is this idea of balancing equations, all right? And what I mean by that is that same concept of this has to be equal to this. And if it is, if everything is equal, then it's like nice and balanced, right? But once I start messing on this side, or once I start messing only on this side, that balance is going to be off, right? Because we want these to stay equal because we're using that equal sign. Now, if you check out that key concepts page, you'll learn that there's 4 different properties of equality that help us stay balanced. So let's check those out. All right, so we still have our same example, 3 + 5 = 8. We know that that's true. That is a balanced equation. But when we have the addition property of equality, what that means is whatever I add to this side of my equation, I also have to add to this side of my equation to, again, keep it balanced. This is what this looks like. So now, my friends, what I've done is I've added 4 on both sides of my equation because I want it to stay balanced. I want it to stay equal, right? Remember, that's what this whole equal sign means, is that this side is the same as this side, right? So over here, we know that 4 + 3 is 7, plus 5 is 12. Over here, we know that 8 + 4 is also 12. So these are still the same. This is still a balanced equation because, again, using that addition property of equality, I added the same amount to both sides of my equation, and then therefore, my friends, it stays balanced. All right, the second property we're going to talk about is that subtraction property. So again, we start out with just our regular old equation where we have 3 + 5 = 8, right? Now, what the subtraction property of equality means, my friends, is that if I subtract something from this side of my equation, I also need to subtract that same amount from this side of my equation to, again, keep them nice and balanced. All right, so what I did now is I'm going to subtract 6 from each side of my equation. So over here, we have 3 + 5, that equals 8, minus 6, that equals 2. And that's equivalent, that's equal to 8 minus 6, which also equals 2. So again, that subtraction property of equality means that you need to subtract the same quantity, the same number, the same value from both sides of your equation to keep it nice and balanced. All right, so now we're going to talk about the multiplication property of equality, and I hope you're kind of noticing a pattern. What the multiplication property of equality says, my friends, is that whenever I multiply one side of my equation by, I also need to multiply that other side of my equation by, again, so that they stay balanced. Let's look at it more. So now, my friends, what I've done is I've taken both of these quantities, right, 3 + 5 and 8, and I'm multiplying them by 2, right? So I'm doing the same operation on both sides of my equation so that they stay nice and equal, right? So I know that if I have 3 + 5, that equals 8, times 2, that equals 16. Likewise, 8 times 2 is also 16. And 16 and 16, those are the same. So our equation is nice and balanced, again, because we multiplied by that same value. All right, my friends, so that last property that we're going to look at together is the division property of equality. And just like all these other properties, what it means, my friends, is that if I divide this quantity by something, in order to make sure that my equation stays nice and balanced, I also need to make sure that I divide this quantity by that same number. Let's check it out. What I've done now, my friends, is I am dividing each side of this equation by 2. And I just want to also make sure that we understand that when you write it as kind of looking like a fraction like this, where you have the numerator and then the denominator, this represents a division, just like using the good old traditional division sign also represents division, right? So it might look a little bit different here, my friends, but remember, that's just a different way that I can represent division, right? And when I have 8 divided by 2, or when I have 8 divided by 2, we know that the solution, the quotient, right, the answer there is 4. And we know that 4 equals 4. That means that my equation is still balanced. So now let's look at this example. We have 24 divided by 6 plus 3. And I want to know, is that equal to 24 divided by 6? Well, let's check it out. I know that 24 divided by 6 is 4, and then 4 plus 3 would be 7. While this side of my equation is equal to 7, let's take a peek over here. I just have 24 divided by 6, and we know that 24 divided by 6 is just 4. And you're so brilliant, you know that 7 and 4, they're not equal to each other. They're not the same number. And why not? Well, if we think about that addition property of equality, I may have added 3 over here, but I did not add 3 over here. Therefore, my equation no longer balanced, right? So I wonder, what would I need to do to this side of my equation to make it balanced again? So we know that that addition property of equality tells us that whatever you add to this side, you also have to add to that side of our equation, right? So in order for these to both be balanced again, I had to add 3 to this side of my equation. And now I have 7 equals 7, which, yep, that's true. We know that this is now a balanced equation. All right, my friends, so that was just a quick run through over those properties of equality. And as always, if you have any other questions, please let me know.